when taking a dive on a test worked out better for everyone. When I was in college, I took a class with this gem of a professor. On the first day of class, he asked how many people thought they would make in a this being a tough engineering school where a C actually was average. Something like 5 students out of a class of 60 raised their hands. He then announced that's how many A's he would give out that semester. All of our tests for that class were multiple choice exams we took online. We were allowed to refer to our notes during the test, and we were allowed to study from old tests, as long as we didn't refer to the old tests during the exam. Fair enough. I studied for the first test but didn't have access to any old exams, so I did fine but not great. By the time the second exam rolled around, I had made a friend who was in a fraternity that had multiple copies of old exams from this professor. We and a couple of others took advantage of the rule allowing us to study from old tests. We quickly discovered that on these 50-question tests the professor had a repertoire of about 75 questions he pulled from. On the first copy of the test we studied from, we took the time to work through the answers to make sure he understood. By the time we got to the fourth copy, we could answer before we even finished reading the question. Exam time rolls around and, just as with previous years, he pulled from the same pile of questions. I think it took me 12 minutes to answer everything correctly. In hindsight, I probably should have let the clock run for a bit. We had an hour, but I went ahead and submitted it because I had other things to do. I checked in with the others I studied with the next day, and all of them had gotten 90% plus. Sweet. Definitely using that plan for test 3 in the final. The next day we all received an email from the professor letting us know we were being reported to the dean for an honor code violation. He claimed he had never had anyone make better than an 80 on one of his tests before. So the fact we all made 90% plus was clear proof in his mind that we cheated. This being an engineering school, we were all nerds who were pretty scared about receiving such an email. But we agreed the best course of action was to talk to the professor before he went to the dean to tell our side of the story and see if we could sort things out. We reached out to him and he agreed to meet with us after class. When we met with him and laid out our case, he was surprisingly receptive to our explanation. I think in reality he didn't want to go through with the hassle of reporting us to the dean. So we left the meeting feeling pretty good and agreed within our study group we would keep studying from the old tests. Well, about a week before test number 3, this guy announces to the class that because some of us had found the previous test so easy, the next one would have twice as many questions in the same amount of time. Being the cheeky sob I am, I asked him as I was leaving class what would happen if someone made a 100 on this test. God help you on the final, was his response. So we used the same approach in studying for the test and found the same pattern of a limited set of questions. Of course, in addition to the extra questions, he had promised all of the questions on this test would be new. So while we again got to the point we had the questions and answers memorized, we tried to make sure we understood the concepts as much as possible to deal with what we expected to be his wrath. Test day comes around and lo and behold, 87 of the questions are pulled directly from old tests. 10 are from a guest lecture where he basically pulled the question and answer directly from the slides. And 3 were filler questions like 1 + 1 = and the earth revolves around the sun. True or false? I knew I had everything right. I also knew I didn't want to screw myself and everyone else for the final. I purposely answered the filler questions incorrectly so if he looked at the results he would know what I had done. I got my 97. I never heard from the professor about that third test, but I like to think of him rage scrolling through the results. I don't remember details about the final, but do remember the format being the same as what had been announced at the beginning of the semester. My study group also worked together on a group project which we also made A's on. So if he really only gave out 5 A's that semester, we received them all. Edit. 1 hour in, and this is by far my most upvoted post and my first awards. Thanks all. If a teacher, professor can state on day 1 how many people are going to get an A, he sucks at teaching. I hate teachers who teach like this. So fucking lazy. It's why a college degree doesn't seem worth as much as it used to. Hold up, an engineering class where all the exams are 100% multiple choice questions? Very well done. Loved reading your story. So while we again got to the point where we had the questions and answers memorized, we tried to make sure we understood the concepts as much as possible to deal with what we expected to be his wrath. You studied. How is this malicious compliance? An alternative point of view is that he riled everyone up on day 1 with the only 5 people will get as bit. And as a result you all spent the semester memorizing old tests but making sure you understood the concepts in case he changed the questions. That's just studying with extra steps. Actually, it might just be studying. When I was in college I took a class with this gem of a professor. On the first day of class he asked how many people thought they would make an A. This being a tough engineering school where AC actually was average. Something like 5 students out of a class of 60 raised their hands. He then announced that's how many A's he would give out that semester. Hi, I'm a character out of a bad late 1980s rom-com. Maybe by the end of the semester I will have met my love interest outside of the college who will help me soften my heart. Maybe it will happen. Maybe not yet. Guess you students all get to find out. I still don't understand why so many posts like this are getting upvotes in this sub. What about this is malicious? What's even being complied with? It's a decent story. Sure, but intentionally missing a few questions because of an implied threat isn't malicious compliance. I strongly dislike that fraternities keep records of tests. I was a female in engineering school in the 80s. The only people that got access to the fraternity tests were members of the fraternity and the women that slept with them. Hopefully, sororities are keeping track of historical engineering tests. But I doubt it. I had a calculus teacher in high school who was the complete opposite. She wanted everyone to get A's in her class and helped us prep for AP exams so that we could receive college-level math credit. In a similar study style to UPS, our teacher would not only go through lesson plans but had us review previous AP exams she made sure that we knew the concepts, so even if some of the questions were new different, we could figure it out. Her final exam was pretty much set up as the AP exam. Timed sections. Extra white paper if we needed the extra space. ECT. She graded us in the same style. 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, 3 as passing, and 1 as failure. I was the only student with a 4 with everyone else at 5. It freaked me out a bit when I actually took the AP test. But push come to shove, I received a 5. I can't thank that teacher enough. May I mention here that I experienced this in all the engineering classes I took in college. Certain males, frat boys, had old exams to refer to. Females didn't have access. Every grade 1 got was based on my work and ability. Frat boys were not obliged to study. Tests were reused. How would those boys do as actual engineers? Think about it. I went to discuss this with the department head. They don't give a minute's attention to the situation. This was in the late 1970s. It is a shame now they have the STEM acronym and are doing no better. Did you end up with an A in the class?
This is actually really fascinating story about the interaction between hard work, privilege,
and broken systems. Like,
the fact is that Op and his friends were extremely smart, competent, diligent people. He humbly tells the story like he found an exploit.
But the fact is they spent an incredible amount of time studying and learning the material and working together and memorizing hundreds of questions.
Most people would likely not have been able to pull this off even with the previous tests. On the other hand, they were able to use their personal connections to get access to a study guide that was
essentially 5x better than any other study guide.
YTF did this happen?
Is previous tests were fair hand?
Couldn't the professor just have made them available?
Why does a random subset of the class get access to a monumentally better guide for essentially no reason? Then there's the fact that the grading system is shot to begin with. So Op and friends needed both hard work and privilege to win at this impossible to ace class. It's like, I dunno.
An especially sharp example, microcosm of his this dynamic works.
Lol, if I had a lecturer like that at my uni I'd be reporting them, not the other way round. American college sounds wild.
Glad you did well.
I'm spending how much tuition for this arbitrary grading system?
OMG.
Teachers who are somehow proud of their low class averages or only give out a single A or say
things like their students never get better than 80% should be fucking fired and never be allowed
to teach again.
I had a middle school teacher who was amazing.
Day one of a special computer class they had set up for 7 of us.
Someone asks if he's grading on a curve.
Yay.
A bell curve.
1 A, 1 D.
Everyone else say B. It was a rolling joke all semester of who's got the D now. Quote,
I now realize how weird a cool middle school teacher likely is.
And how who's getting the D may not have been a great phrase. Same situation when I took physical chemistry classes in college.
The department only offers class 1 in the fall, class 2 in the spring.
And you need to pass both class 1 plus 2 to take the senior project class next year. There are rumors that people changed major after failing class 1.
The teacher would curve the overall grades so top 10%, 2 to 3 students out of 20.
Got a professor is a weird guy.
He held the final a week ahead of the schedule and used the university assigned final time slot to discuss grade with students.
It's his tradition and he has it on syllabus on day 1. Basically, students line up outside his office, come in for a one-on-one session where he asks everyone the same question. Here is your grade.
You are at the borderline of 2-letter grades. Tell me why you deserve the higher letter grade. Students hate him because they thought he enjoyed playing with their minds.
I made above 90% for class 1 without the curve, so my session with him went well, but 4 people didn't
make it to the second class.
There was a guy who failed the class the previous year and barely made a D in our class. We were in the study group together and he couldn't get the subject as fast as us. Final time came and we worried for our friend, so we hatched a plan. We gathered the average of our class,
simulated the final grade,
and realized that the top people need to not perform, so there would be a larger curve that benefit
people with lower grade like my friend.
With that, I purposely left the answer for question 1 blank and ended up with the overall grade of 85.6%.
The grade discussion date came and I asked to be the first one to talk with the professor.
He asked whether I see the page with question 1 on exam date and gave me 5 minutes to solve it for half of the credits. I declined the offer.
Showed him our grade simulation and our proposed letter grade cut so it followed a Cauchy-Lorentz distribution. The professor laughed hard at the end of the presentation and asked me to email the grade simulation to him on the spot.
Later, I was informed
by my study group
that everyone got the proposed grade on the simulation.
My friend made a C and graduated next year with us. Yay, this professor was a bad professor.
His job is to teach the material to everyone and get them all to a level of comprehension.
What a piece of shit.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.